So many people ask me, how are you able to switch languages just like that? Like, I'm speaking English now, 막 아까 dadelik omruil in Afrikaans moet wegget든. 그리고 그 다음에는 바로 한국어 이렇게 나올 수 있잖아요. Je pense que c'est une question vraiment importante et je veux vous expliquer comment je le fais. So let's get right into the video. There's more languages to that. I'm going to share with you how I'm able to balance more than one language at the same time. Allons-y. First, I'm going to talk about the type of mindset you need to have to approach learning more than one language at the same time. It's not the same mindset that you need when you're just learning one. There are a few things that you have to change about your mental approach towards learning languages when you do more than one. What do I mean by mindset and why do I talk about it so often in my videos? I'm of the philosophy that mindset is such a big contributing factor to the success that you have in your language learning journey. Think about the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. A growth mindset is where you believe that you can develop and grow and that your skills can get better. This doesn't necessarily mean like, okay, after a year, I know that I'm gonna speak the language better. It's more believing that you have the drive and the ability to push through when things get hard. So growth mindset is the one type of mindset that you want to cultivate. Then the other mindset that you have to have is reframing or acceptance. If you're learning one language, for argument's sake, 3 years, you'll be comfortable to speak at an upper beginner, intermediate, whatever, depends on the language. If you're learning one language for 3 years, you're set. If you're learning 2 languages, it might take you 6 years to get both languages to the same level. Don't take my word for this. This is purely an illustration. Every situation is different. So think about it this way. If you're learning only Spanish, give yourself 3 years, your progress, your speed is going to be like that, hopefully, if you are consistent. But now you're learning Spanish and Korean. Both languages have to go up, but you can only spend the same amount of time that you would be spending on one on both, right? So your speed in both, like your progress, your ability is going to be not so steep. If I have 5 hours a week, let's say I have 1 hour every day to dedicate to language learning, and I'm only learning Spanish, that means I have 5 hours a week to spend on Spanish. That is great, okay? If you can only manage an hour a day or 3 hours on the weekend, 2 hours in the week, nice. But now let's say I'm adding Korean, but I still only have 5 hours. Now, if my math is not terrible, that means it is 2.5 hours per language, if that's how you want to split it, like 50-50. You could get 5 hours of solid learning in only on Spanish, then in a month you'll get 20 hours in, if my math is correct. But if you're doing both Spanish and Korean, you're only going to get 10 hours per language per month. Your time is probably not going to change. Just because you're learning 2, 3, 4 languages, your amount of time that you can spend on it is not going to get more. Instead, the amount of time you can spend on each language is decreasing. How that relates to mindset, it's an acceptance mindset. It's kind of like a sacrifice that you have to make in saying, I am going to be okay with the fact that I'm not going to progress as fast as I would in learning Korean because I'm doing Korean and Spanish at the same time. So it's telling yourself, I'm okay with this. This is the choice that I've made, that these 2, 3, 4 languages are so important for me that I would sacrifice speed and progress to be able to have variety. So how do you know if learning more than one language at the same time is right for you? Number one, if you are able to cultivate that mindset of acceptance in like, you know what, time, speed, progress, that's not so important to me. I appreciate and prefer variety. If you can get to that point, great. That is one way how you know learning more than one language at the same time is right for me. And the second way that you can know this is to test what are your motivations and your goals. If your motivation for doing more than one language at the same time is just, I want to be a polyglot, well, you might struggle because that motivation is not going to keep you going when things get hard. Maybe for some people, but I feel that I need something much more solid. I have to have a personal connection with the language. So for me, back in the day, I started learning Korean I have tons of videos on why that is or what my Korean journey is. But then when I started Japanese, it wasn't about, okay, Korean and Japanese are similar, I'm just gonna do that. It was more about, well, okay, my family moved to Japan, or I want to do my internships in Japan, or I'm interested in Japanese design. Those were personal reasons that I could add to it and say, maybe my Korean progress is going to slow down because I'm introducing Japanese now, but I know this decision is important to me because Japanese is really close to my heart because of so-and-so personal factor. So if you have a very personal or a strong reason or motivation to learn a language, then likely you will be able to balance more than one because each language has a specific purpose and reason for you to be learning. And now the fun part. What are some techniques that you can use to be balancing your languages? I'm not going to be discussing time management as a strategy just because I have a few other videos about it, but moreover, it's a very personal thing. Everybody's personal schedule is different. When I do language coaching, I look at your situation and your time and your context in particular, and together we work out what are time management strategies that will work for you and your goals. I have a few clients who I've been seeing for months so that we can follow your language learning journey very, very deeply, track it over time, and really tweak your time management, your strategies, your resources. You are very welcome to book a coaching call with me to talk about that. But for the sake of this video and a broader audience, I'm going to give you a few tips on how to balance or how to learn two languages at the same time. If you like flashcards, if you work with spaced repetition, if you feel the way I learn vocabulary best is by constantly reviewing it on flashcards, this is for you. We're going to use the example of doing Spanish and Korean. On the one side of the flashcard, whether it's digital or paper, you have the word in English. Let's say car. On the other side, you're gonna have both Korean and Spanish. So 차 or 자동차 and coche or carro, depending on the country. When you are looking at the English, you can be like, okay, car, do I know it in Spanish? Coche, carro, yes. Do I know it in Korean? I don't know, let me flip, 자동차 or 차. That way, you are testing your brain to make a connection between all three languages. And you're testing your recall and your memory to see, can I remember the word in both of the languages that I'm learning? Then something that has proved really, really useful for me is called language stacking. And this works even better if the languages you're learning are from the same family. I learned Korean many years before I started with Japanese. But when I decided to start learning Japanese, I used a textbook that was in Korean. So a textbook made for Korean native speakers who want to learn Japanese. And why it worked is Korean and Japanese have very, very similar grammar structures, sentence order. It's quite easy to make connections between Korean and Japanese. Like, oh, okay, so the Japanese particle is the same as ulu in Korean. Okay, I get it now. And what that did is it cut the extra cognitive load of going back to English between that, right? So if I'm learning Japanese from English, it would have said like the o particle is an object particle and you use it for this and this and this, and I'd be like, okay, Japanese, English, okay, we don't have it in English. But if I used it directly between Korean and Japanese, and when my Korean textbook said the o particle is the same as ulu in Korean, I was like, oh, it's exactly the same, I get it. My brain didn't have to try and find how to make another connection. Obviously, this is not going to be the case with all languages. You might not have languages that are from the same family. But nevertheless, if you do language stacking, that is learning one language from another language. So home language, put that aside. Target language number 2, you will learn by means of target language 1. So see if you can find resources, videos, textbooks, articles, blog posts, Instagram, whatever, for people learning that language from the other language that you speak. I bet you for most languages, you will find things like that. And that just keeps both languages alive. The other tip that I want to give you is about splitting up your time between the languages, so prioritizing them. This is a really personal thing. I used to have the approach of like, okay, all my languages are equally important, so I'm gonna spend an equal amount of time. I'm just gonna hit the ground running for a year. Did not work for me. It's just too much pressure. my brain is just like, I don't know which to prioritize because they're all important. So number one, you have to prioritize. Number two, think about how can I split these languages in a year or a quarter or a month or a week or even a day, and try a different approach every 2 weeks or every month. Log it, see how it goes, and then decide, okay, this way of scheduling or managing my time is important or works best for me. Around the lockdown time, when I had a bit more time on my hands, I had one focus language and then 2 sub-focus or 2 minor languages for each quarter. So for the first 3 months of the year, it was like Hungarian is 70% of my time. So the other 15% was for Korean and the other 15% was for Japanese. So Hungarian, most of my time went to Hungarian, and then the rest of my time went to Korean and Japanese. And then the other quarter of the year, like 3 months after that, I would swap or bring in another language and say, for this season or this quarter, I'm gonna focus on Spanish. Majority of my time is gonna go to Spanish, and then other parts of my time, the smaller sections of my time, are gonna go to Hungarian or Korean or Japanese or whatever. So that's a more broader view if you wanna take it like quarters or parts of a year at a time. You can also do it monthly and say, I'm doing Spanish, Korean, French. I'm gonna do week 1 of the month Spanish, week 2 Korean, and week 3 French, and then rotate. That can work, but what I found for me is that the context switching is frustrating. Because just as I get in a groove with learning one language, I'm like, oh, okay, it's Monday, I gotta switch to the other language now, but I didn't finish that, worksheet, or I still wanna watch this video in this language. So try it out if it works for you. I did not enjoy switching every single week. Another thing that you can try is per day. Maybe every single Monday is one language, every Tuesday is the other one. It can be even more granular and say mornings are Korean time and evenings are Spanish, or lunch break is French, weekends are Italian. Whatever. As you can see, there are so many different ways of mapping out and planning how you want to structure when you learn which language. There is no magic answer. There's no formula. I wish I could, but I can't give you a formula to say if you do language 1 in the mornings for 2 weeks and then language 2 in the evenings, blah, 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 you're going to get fluent. No. It's so personal. It depends on your circadian rhythm, your body clock, your energy, the type of work you do. Do you have, kids you have to take care of? Not. So many factors that can influence your language learning. Again, what I recommend is track it, log it, write about it. Take your journal at the end of the week and say what worked this week, what didn't, and what can I improve for next week. I'm so tired. I feel like I've been talking for, let's see, 24 minutes and 12 seconds. I hope this video is not going to be that long. Okay, let us summarize. So number 1, you want to ensure you have the right mindset. That will be a growth mindset and a mindset of acceptance of, yes, I accept and I acknowledge that variety is more important to me than speed and progress. Then you want to ensure that you have a good reason for doing all of the languages that you are. And then you want to implement tips and strategies to help you personally. Whether that is multiple language flashcards, whether that is language stacking, etc. You find interesting techniques that can work for you. And then lastly, try as many different methods as you can to see how balancing the languages in your calendar, whether it's monthly, daily, weekly, yearly, whatever, find out what suits you and your lifestyle by trying a few different methods, and then you'll know. I hope this video was useful for you. I do have quite a lot more tips on how to learn a language which can apply to learning more than one language. So if you want to have more tips like that, please leave a comment and I will make a more detailed video soon. I need to stop talking and I need to go get a drink of water. Thank you so much if you've watched until here. I truly appreciate you being here. Your support means so much, especially now that I'm unemployed. Every single view counts and I really appreciate it. And please like and subscribe if this video was helpful for you. And then I will see you guys in the next video.